Much more of that in the newspapers. One thing that will not be in the early editions of the newspapers is that Sir Norman Wisdom has died. The news just broke in the last hour. He died this afternoon at a nursing home on the Isle of Man. That's been confirmed by his son. Over the past 6 months, Sir Norman had suffered a series of strokes which had caused a decline in his health, and the family say he'd maintained a degree of independence up until just a few days ago. He was, of course, 95 years old. Over the last few days, his condition has had rapidly declined, apparently. We'll be getting reaction to his death from some who knew him, but first of all, a look back at his life with Nick Higham.
Emergency!
He was a slapstick clown, the little man, clumsy, put upon, endearing.
It's all right, Mr. Grimsdale, bit of hold up, but don't worry.
He'd had a hard childhood. At the age of 13, he was living on the street. Only when he joined the army did he find warmth, friendship and enjoyment.
It gave me a home, something to eat, a wonderful place to live, marvellous mates, and football, cricket, swimming, everything that I thought was in life.
He turned professional after leaving the army and toured as straight man to the magician David Nixon.
You murderer!
Soon he was starring in a series of successful low-budget comedies. He was astonishingly agile. Charlie Chaplin said he was his favourite clown. But he was more than just a comedian. He won awards playing a terminally ill cancer patient.
Where'd you find that?
Kept it in the linen cupboard.
Dear, oh dear.
He was a huge star in Albania, where his had been the only Western films allowed by the communist dictatorship. He was mobbed each time he visited the country. Today, his comedy seems unsophisticated. Downtrodden clowns are out of fashion, but Norman Wisdom had proved there was more to him than slapstick alone.
Well, Nick Higham reporting on Sir Norman Wisdom there, who's died this afternoon at the age of 95. Just before we hear from one film director who worked with him towards the end of his career, we'd have a look at Norman Wisdom's official website, because the site now just has this front page to it. This is just in the last around about half an hour or so, and in the small type down at the bottom, I suspect many of you will not be able to see that properly at home. It says the full website will return shortly. Our servers have crashed twice with the amount of traffic. So there we are, the website, Sir Norman Wisdom's official website crashing with the interest as the news just comes out in the last hour that he has indeed died in a nursing home in the Isle of Man. He was in relatively ill health, especially in the last few days, having had a number of strokes over the last few years. Now, in 2007, he, and by this stage he was into his 90s, Sir Norman had appeared in one of his last films, a short one called Espresso, set in a cafe, and Norman Wisdom was cast as the vicar. Well, Kevin Powis directed him, and he joins us on the line now. Very good evening to you. What's your reaction to the news of his death?
Well, it was just shock, really. I know it shouldn't be shock because he has lived to a good age, but I couldn't live to that age. But watching the news, then you see it, it's just, you'd never think it was going to happen. So it was just complete shock. But then it brings back all the memories straight away of just a fantastic time spent with him. You know, he was 92 when he made the film with me, and crikey, you'd never believe he was 92. It was just fantastic.
I presume that he wasn't doing his usual clowning around at that age, but what was he like to work with?
Well, on the day that he came, we'd got a Winnebago outside for all the actors, and he'd got his own Winnebago, and I got the message that he'd arrived, and when I went out and went into the Winnebago, he was very, very tired. And I just thought, this isn't going to happen, because we'd planned it for months, and we thought, this is just never going to happen. Never am I going to get Sir Norman Wisdom. And the guy that I worked on the film, Nigel Davey, we just never thought it was going to happen. And when I saw him, he was like exhausted, and he said, I'm very tired. And I was filming another scene in the morning with another actor, and Sir Norman says, I'm just going to have a little sleep. And thought, OK, great. In the afternoon, when he came in, it's like he'd been plugged into the mains. He was absolutely buzzing. Everybody was... there must have been 100 people just standing outside because the news had got out that he was there, and they'd just come at the last minute. There was press everywhere. I've never seen anything like it other than on the television. We were just inundated, and Sir Norman was just amazing. He never stopped cracking jokes all the while we were filming. We had every television crew for miles around all holding up our film shoot so that they could get their interviews. Just lines of, I'll say the word paparazzi, and I'm not exaggerating, just lines of photographers, and people had just stormed onto the location, which we tried to keep a secret, and he just laughed and joked all the way through. For me to direct someone like Norman Wisdom, obviously I was nervous, but he just brushed that aside, and he never stopped making people laugh.
What was he like on a personal level?
Well, I can't claim to know him on a personal level. Obviously, I was talking to him when the cameras weren't rolling, and to me, he seemed no different than when they were. He was just laughing, joking. He'd got like I don't know where the jokes come from. He must have had just like a encyclopedia of jokes in his mind, and he just got one for everything that happened, every occasion. He just never stopped joking. And then at the end of the filming, all the people had stayed behind. There was hundreds, and they'd all come with their books and their videos and their DVDs, and they lined up, and this line went right out of the set into the car park outside, and he sat at the table, the same table that he'd sat for the filming, and he didn't move until every last person had had their DVD or their book or a photograph. And he just sat there, and he had a joke for every one of them. It was incredible, and obviously it's a memory that, hopefully I'll have forever. You can't, if we'd had £1 million budget, I couldn't have asked for any more than that.
Why do you think he did it, working on the film with you at the age of 92? What do you think at that stage was still motivating him?
Well, he'd already retired. He'd announced his retirement, and I know he was doing the cruise ships and things like that. He was still very active, because when we were filming, he was actually on a cruise at that time, and the whole thing had all been, it was one of these things that we never thought was going to happen, because everything had got to hinge together. He'd got to get back into England. He'd got to drive up to that set, and it was all very, very time critical. And I think, well, the only explanation I ever had, because obviously when we tried him, it's like he got as much chance of winning the lottery. The only explanation we ever had was that when it was put to him, there was this small film, and he played the part of a vicar. Instead of just turning it away, he just turned to his agent and said, "You know what? I've never been a vicar," and that was it. And once Sir Norman said he'd do it, we ended up with a string of celebrities, all giving it up, because the film was made for charity, and I hope that your listeners won't mind if I tell them that they can read about the film on a website called expressofilm.com, because it's all for charity. Not a single penny goes anywhere else other than Macmillan Cancer Support. And that short film's available on there. And we had a small army of celebrities who were all quite happy to be in this film when a legend like Sir Norman said he would do it.
Well, very interesting. Kevin Powis, thank you very much indeed for talking to us about that. Thank you. Well, there's Sir Norman Wisdom, who it's just been confirmed about an hour or so ago by his son that he has died at the age of 90.